Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to get some time to let some more folks pile into this LinkedIn live session, but excited for you all to be here, excited for this conversation. If you're in the chat, let us know where you're joining from. Are you from Houston, Austin, Dallas? Maybe you're coming from a different state. We'd love to hear where you're coming from. Again, if you're just joining us, thank you for being here for Advancing Access in Texas, a joint info session. We're really excited for today's conversation and look forward to having you all a part of the conversation with us. We see Dallas represented. Thank you. If anyone else is in the chat, let us know where you're coming from. Good morning, joining from Houston. Thanks for being a part of this. H Town. Hey Ted, how's it going? The Lighthouse of Houston. Thank you for joining us. Hey from Houston, how's it going? Hey Kim, thank you for joining us. D, thank you for joining us. So excited to have my friends and colleagues in the ecosystem joining for today. We really appreciate it. We're going to get started here soon. My name is Khalil Vincent. I'm the founder and CEO of TechFest Live. TechFest Live is a nonprofit ed tech organization based in Houston. We exist at the intersection of education, workforce development, and economic growth. And our mission is to connect the youth of today to a better tomorrow through technology opportunity. I'm really excited about this conversation. This is something that I think is super important, not only for TechFest Live, but as well as for the leaders that we have today with us, joining us. I do see some more folks joining in. We are actually live from Captive Studios. So, Kari, thank you for the opportunity to bring this to our audience. So, shout out to Captive Studio. Joining from Gateway, Ireland, but a Houstonian. Wow, we are going international, you all. Good morning. Good morning. I'm going to give about 1 or 2 more minutes to let some more folks join in, and then we will go ahead and get started. We really appreciate you all being here. I see Austin in the chat, Fort Worth. Great to have you all. I'm interested to know, do we have any educators, any CTE coordinators, special needs coordinators, counselors, principals? Who do we have in the chat? Where are you all coming from? Are you from the corporate side? Are you from the education side? Or are you just here to learn a little bit more about the conversation on advancing access in Texas? While you all are putting those answers in the chat, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, again, good morning. My name is Khalil Vincent. I'm the founder and CEO of TechFest Live. I'm so excited to have you all with us today. And thank you for your time and for choosing to be a part of this conversation on advancing access in Texas. I'm really excited about today because this dialogue did not start in a boardroom. It wasn't a formal planning session. This was something that was very organic. And I think the opportunity that we have here to have this conversation to shed light on advancing access in Texas is going to be a real treat for you all. So again, thank you all for joining. I will be your moderator today, and what we're doing here is not just a panel discussion. This is a conversation on how access actually shows up, whether that's in the classroom, in programs, or through student experiences, and how we're moving from intention to implementation across Texas. So, what I'm going to do, I want to briefly set the stage for you all and let you know how this group came together because I think it really reflects the conversation here today. I first had the chance to meet Angela at the Abilities Expo last year. It was a brief conversation, but just from that initial conversation, I knew that there was alignment. And so I'm so glad that we're able to do this. Um, Through that connection with Angela, she actually was reconnected to her by her colleague Shannon, who then introduced TechFest Live to Patrick. And once we met Patrick, I was like, we have to bring Jade in with Sports Quest. And so everyone is playing a different role in different spaces, but there is one clear message here, which is advancing access through opportunity and technology. So today we're joined by leaders who are actively doing the work in their respective spaces. Angela brings a statewide lens through her role leading the Technology Access Program at University of Texas at Austin, where she sees firsthand the system-level challenges districts are navigating and what it takes to move beyond compliance towards meaningful access. Shannon works closely with educators on the ground as part of the Technology Access Program, helping translate tools and ideas into classroom practice and supporting teachers as they navigate implementation. Patrick leads the Hello Maker Studio within the College of Natural Science at the University of Texas at Austin, where his work sits at the intersection of design, creativity, accessibility, and workforce-aligned learning, especially through maker-centered experiences. And last but not least, Jade brings a critical student-centered perspective through her work as a special needs coordinator at SportsQuest Soccer, grounding this conversation in what it actually feels like, access actually feels like for students and families. So thank you all for joining us. So to kick us off, I'd like to go down the line for each of you all to briefly introduce yourselves and share why this work matters to you and your community. Angela, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Good morning. I am the director of the Texas Technology Access Program, and we are tasked we're a federal grant, and we're tasked with providing and supporting technology access for Texans with disabilities. And although we're housed at UT, we do serve the entire state. I believe there will be links and access for our website so you can go explore all of the super cool things we do. And this work to me, I actually started in K-12 many years ago, and technology has always, to me, been the avenue for people to access the world, to be able to do what they want to do, and even more so for individuals with disabilities.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll go to Shannon next.
Thanks, Khalil. I come to this. Angela brought me into assistive technology. I did a lot with augmentative and alternative communication prior to coming here. So I work with Angela at the University of Texas at Austin at the Texas Technology Access Program as the education project manager. Prior to this, I was a Navy veteran. I drove a forklift in the Navy. And so I've always had my hands in things that go together, which is why I'm so interested in the maker movement. And then I supported kids in schools in the Cy-Fair Independent School District for 16 years, and then worked as an education, I have to think of my title, at the Education Service Center, supporting the 50 school districts, actually over 50 school districts around the Houston area. And that was in Region 4. And I've had the pleasure now of working with the University of Texas. And a passion project is really above and beyond everything else Angela and I do, is really helping the CTE programs in Texas recognize that there's so much potential in creating assistive technology for the students in their own entity. So when I worked in Cy-Fair, there were students that needed equipment, and it took so long to get that equipment. There's also these CTE students, and they're not connecting as much as they should. And we're starting to bridge them together. And I look at it as that power of one, where if every CTE student made one tool, how much better our Texas students with disabilities would be served. And we can even take that a step beyond and go into some of the adult adult facilities and help others. So it doesn't just stop within the schools. There's so much potential. All right, yeah. I went over and over and over, Khalil, so I'll let you move on.
No, you're perfectly fine. Thank you for that introduction, and it's a great segue for us to introduce Patrick. For Patrick to introduce himself. So, Patrick, thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thanks for having me. It is one of the things about the maker movement, which I discovered as a classroom teacher. For a long time, I was an inclusion teacher in public school for 5th grade, and discovering that there's a whole world of makers creating things and being imaginative with design and materials and equipment changed my whole trajectory. And I think one of the most important things now is democratizing it even more. And I think that's the perfect nexus for work with disabilities in this design space, because things are so expensive. And one of the great powerful parts about the maker movement is that anybody can be an active member of it. And so that's really what inspired me when I met Angela and Shannon, was to join forces and be able to access Hello Maker Studio to complement each other's work and to keep on moving these projects forward.
Yeah, you are doing some really powerful things at Hello Maker Studio, working with students of all sorts. And speaking of working with students, would love to bring up Jade at Sports Quest and share a little bit about yourself, Jade.
Yeah, so when I was younger, I started a nonprofit organization for at-risk teens, and so I ran that for 4 years, and it was mainly just based off of research that I had done. But when I had the opportunity to go to DC and I studied at Georgetown, I got an opportunity to work at a neuroscience lab for education, and so that is really where my mind or just opportunities were risen up with how access to technology and just other modern resources are used to help in the education world. And so now coming back to Houston, I've been working with the ministry, right? So with a lot of teens and a lot of youth, but then it becomes difficult once you reach, those students with disabilities. The smaller the program, the less access that they have. And so now I've been working with Sports Quest, which is, we are also a nonprofit, but we use the platform of soccer to be able to reach the students with disabilities. So we reach youth all the way to adult day centers. And so right now we're really trying to bridge the gap between what's already known, right? Physical abilities, but with technology and being able to provide them the equipment that meets them where they are, right? Tailor them where they are. To be able to reach what success looks like for each individual athlete, right? Might not be the sport, but that way we can reach the athlete and their family as a whole.
Yeah. So thank you all. Thank you to all these leaders. If we would in the chat, can I get some hand claps or maybe some celebrations? So super excited to have these leaders across Texas join us for this important conversation. So if you're ready for the conversation, put some emojis in the chat. We're looking forward to getting started. So Angela, I want to start with you. From what you're seeing across Texas, what are some of the common challenges that you see districts are facing, and how can the Texas Technology Access Program, how are you helping address some of those challenges in a meaningful way?
So Texas has a lot of challenges when you look at K-12 and supporting special ed and specifically assistive technology. First of all, we're big. There are over 2,000 local education agencies or school districts in Texas. And of course, they're in different locations like rural areas and urban areas and suburban areas. And some districts are lucky enough to have all of those settings within one district. So managing that, just the administrative piece, is quite challenging. There are federal and state laws and state policy that direct how that special education should be provided. But I would cautiously say that the over 2,000 districts may not make the mark every time, not because they don't want to. It's been my profound experience over my 40 years working in this field that most practitioners want to do the right thing and want to do it with authenticity, want to do it ethically, and want to do it with high fidelity. But that is often hampered because either there is not enough personnel, there is not enough money, or there are not enough resources. And I know that sounds a little bit like a broken record in the world of public school, but I'm going to be quite frank. Texas is not really stellar at providing those supports for K-12. There are other states that do much more with funding and much more with pre-service and much more with the personnel are either paid more or supported more, so they tend to stay longer and support their districts better. So that, not to paint a very negative picture, I see so much potential because those practitioners are in the right place and they do want to support those students and they do want them to be successful. And the benefit of a K-12 student being successful is that when they leave the K-12 system, they are going to be able to participate in society in a more active and productive level, whether that's going to be going to school or working or simply engaging appropriately in their communities and environments and families. So there's a big picture perspective, and then when you get down to the classroom level, there's a little challenge in getting the grind to make it work appropriately for that student.
Yeah, and I think it's not a problem with us talking about the challenges that are at hand, right? I think this conversation was really brought together so that we can put the challenges, on the table, and then collectively, not only just the leaders here on the conversation, but you all in the audience as well. We want to collectively solve or work towards solving some of these challenges. Shannon, you had brought up a good point when I got introduced to you about the 80% deficit with assisted technology, and so keeping in line with the theme of challenges, what are some of the challenges that you are seeing educators facing, and what are some of the support that they may need, or what are you seeing on the ground from an educator challenge when it comes to assistive technology and access?
I think the biggest challenge is we're working in silos. When we work with the CTE teams, they don't know what they don't know, and they don't realize that need is even out there. And when you're working with special education, they also don't have the time to run over and meet with the CTE team to see what they're doing. And they don't realize how many fabulous tools could be made with both teams working together. So you don't know what you don't know. So there is so much potential for growth. You think about, you have in every school district, as Angela said, we have all of those school districts, they all have a student that possibly has a vision impairment. Well, there are tools that can be 3D printed to give them access to understanding how things feel through 3D printing. We have students that have augmentative and alternative communication devices, and a key guard would be $100 prior to the onset of this 3D printing technology. And now I can make a key guard, which helps someone with mobility. If you think about a touch screen, it's hard to rest your hand if you have mobility issues. And this could be someone who's aging or someone who has cerebral palsy. And so the key guards actually help guide them on a tablet so that they have access. So it gives them access. So there's that technology. So the need is there. These tools are expensive, and that's why we have that gap of underfilled assistive technology tools. But there's so many things that open the door for project-based learning for these kids in the CTE programs. It's not just 3D printing, but it's really looking at an individual. You have robotics. Well, what if you actually looked at a student with cerebral palsy and saw how bodies worked, and then you could create something to help that individual within your own entity? And then the unintended consequences, you build these relationships, and we start seeing that we don't need to be siloed. And when you start working together, both sides benefit, but they don't know what they don't know. And we've got to bridge that gap because we can do better when we know better.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you look at any industry and we're talking about working in silos, it goes across all industries. I think the more that we can break down those silos, have these type of conversations, bring leaders and educators to the table, again, to have these conversations, the better that I think we all would be. And again, this is for our youth and young adults. This is for the next generation of our workforce, of society. So this is a very important conversation. So thank you, Shannon. Patrick, you are launching a new pilot where undergraduate students are co-creating assistive technology with and for students. Would love to see if you could talk a little bit about that operation, and why is co-creation such an important shift for you, and how is that working with Hello Maker Studio?
Yes, thanks. I'm happy to share. It's all in progress, so we're still meeting and kind of working out the logistics. But the main idea is I have a class here at UT called DIY Assistive Tech, and students. There's about 50 students from a diverse background from all across campus. So it could be music majors, it could be engineers, it could be people in the College of Natural Sciences. And they're at varying levels of experience levels. So some have been in makerspaces for many years. So this might be their first time stepping foot into one and learning how to 3D print or laser cut and work with design thinking. And one of the things I was hoping for was to be able to leverage not only Hello Maker Studio, the CNS makerspace, but also, we have a 50-person workforce that could potentially make an impact in the community in a very meaningful way. And that is where it kind of dovetails into the nothing about us without us, which is rightfully the kind of mantra in this field. It could easily turn this class into some like feel good moment where we're essentially othering other people. That if we don't have the people in the disability space that's their lived experience, and we just have people just kind of providing things, that implicitly suggests that they can't design for themselves. And so that's the work with the classroom side is navigating these issues and introducing students to something they many have never thought about. Meanwhile, we're working with Rosedale School here in Austin, and identifying teachers and students both who would like to participate in this process. And so it's very early on. We met with the principal yesterday. It has to, like all things in school districts, it has to go through all these different layers. And so we've amazingly, it was pretty quick for considering just how large Austin ISD is. And so we're going to kick that off in the next couple of weeks, where I'll be visiting the campus. My students will have access to the campus as well, and be working side by side, essentially, with the faculty there and with students to, in theory, at the end of the semester, come up with solutions and improvements for what's in the classroom just to make things either more efficient or more comfortable, more durable for these students.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I really like what you said. We have the same sentiments here at TechFest Live. If we're not asking the students who we're working with how they feel about what we're building, we have to make sure everyone has a seat at the table. So I really appreciate you shedding a light on that, because it is super important. And so, Patrick, you have this student focus. Love what you all are doing at the Hello Maker Studio. And we'd love to get a chance to come up there and check the work out that you're doing. I want to move over to Jade. So from a student's point of view, you are on the ground working day in and day out with youth. What does the meaningful access actually look like from a student's perspective? What are some of the conversations that you may have had with some of these students, and how are they feeling about either the lack of access or the access that they may have?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would say the consistency that our program provides. Right now, we're only based in Houston and mainly in the Cypress and Katy area. And for those of you who don't know, right, Houston is really big. So you could be driving for an hour and you're sometimes still in Houston. And so one of the things coming up is when I get a call from a parent who's advocating for their child, they're interested in getting connected and providing their services. They're just on the lookout for any solid organization that could provide a program that doesn't, all the services we provide are free. And so they are wanting consistency. They are wanting not just a pop-up. And so even though throughout the year we have consistency where we go every Tuesday, every Wednesday, every Thursday to specific locations, the meaningful, outlook from these youth parents or these youth or the adults are the consistency to it. And so, we have our coaches come out, and we have myself come out, and what makes it the most meaningful is the consistency. So it's almost about 9 months straight of going every single week with the same group of individuals. Again, we both do youth and adults, and we see growth in them. And so, the meaningfulness comes from consistency. And when we do our evaluations from the programs that we're connected with, they always say we would prefer more one-on-one. We'd prefer for you guys not to switch out your volunteers. And so, they're just like us. They want relationships with us. They want for you to care for them and not to replace it with, just efficiency all the time. So.
Yeah. And we'll stay with you really quick. So with your inclusive programming, what are the impacts you're seeing on the students that you're working with, on their confidence and their level of engagement? What does that look like for you over the course of those 9 months?
Yeah, that is one of my favorite parts. And so we are faith-based. And so when we go out and do these soccer trainings, we also have a downtime, a cool down time where we play music sometimes, or when we just, pray with them, care for them. We do that caring portion that maybe the nurses on staff, they're with them all the time. So they can kind of rely on us to do that. And so that has been the most beautiful part, because we don't just go in, wanting to care without a game plan. So we do have a curriculum that we go through, and we rotate through every 5 weeks. And so, just one beautiful story, when I was sharing and, caring for them with all my other volunteers, about two of we have high functioning special needs and we have lower functioning. And so one of our lower functioning groups, a lot of them don't talk, they're nonverbal. You really have to, grab them and help them almost do every little thing. And then after being able to care for them, one of them just started talking and sharing and doing things that you're just like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful, this is amazing. And then, just allowing them to be comfortable, allowing them to know that they are advancing at their own rate. We've been able to see those engagements, right? And it's not necessarily that success means that they're doing what we're doing, but like you said, it's their confidence, it's how well they're engaging at their level. So we definitely see that, and it's beautiful, it's impactful for us. So
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that, and thank you for the work that you're doing for youth and young adults across the city of Houston. It's super important. Angela, I want to come back to you. We were talking about the challenges, right? But I want to talk a little bit about what does long-term scalable support look like for the schools, ISDs or charter schools, all the students that you all serve throughout the state of Texas. What could that and what does that scalable support look like? And maybe a few places that you can tell the audience where they can go and learn a little bit more.
Absolutely. So I kind of identified 3 areas I think that could make a big impact. And of course, all of it's going to require work and investment of time and energy, but that's when you get the best return, right? So the first is at the pre-service level. And I think that UT is kind of modeling that with the work we're doing with Patrick. But that's one tiny example. I want to see that happen at all of the universities, so that at every university, any student who wants to engage in maker education to support students with disabilities has access to that. So there's a lot of professions within the pre-service that support special education in public school. There's occupational therapists and physical therapists and speech therapists and teachers of visually impaired and then actual special education teachers. And if all of those educators and professionals and allied professionals had access to learn how to do this. So it's not that high-tech technology is not a great thing. It is a great thing, and it's the right tool sometimes, but it's not always the right tool every time. And sometimes it's not available in the moment. So if as a speech therapist, I'm going through my pre-service training and I'm learning about communication devices. And with communication devices, you have a grid of pictures or letters, and somebody pushes the pictures or letters or accesses them in a way appropriate for them, and the machine talks for them. So occasionally, sometimes somebody needs what they call a key guard, which is a guide around the squares, so they can hit the pictures better or the letters better. So you can buy a key guard for $500, which means in a public school, you've got to order it, get it approved, get it shipped out, and it could be, December before you get it if you ordered it in September. Or you can print one for about 25, 30 cents maybe. So if as a speech therapist, in a pre-service environment like UT, I can take a maker class or even just go learn how to do things at Hello Maker and learn how I can make a key guard for my communication devices. And it just there's a little applet you can use for it. Somebody's written this for free. And then I have that skill set when I go into that public school. But if that pre-service opportunity isn't there, then I can't do that. So that's one place, is pre-service. So we got to reach out to the universities. Patrick's kind of the beta tester for all this, and then we can maybe share this with other universities, and certainly if within the UT system, because we have a very big family of universities within our university. That would be a place to start. Another place I think we could make a difference is policy. So policy is complicated in Texas, but as practitioners, I think it is part of our obligation to reach out to our state legislators and policymakers to let them know where the needs are. If we can take some of these examples that we're doing with Patrick and Austin ISD and say, hey, look at this fabulous thing that happened, and share that with policymakers that can make a difference. We are connected at the state level with the Governor's Committee for People with Disabilities, and they do direct policy for the governor. So we have shared some of these activities with him, and he's super excited about them and wants more information and may incorporate some of that into policy recommendations at the state level. And I guess our next legislative session will be in 2 years or a year and a half, or whatever, in 20. We just had one, so we're going to have one another 2 years. And then the third thing is TEA is kind of an in-between for this. So the TEA is the Texas Education Agency. I think they could use some support to see the focus of where this could be. Again, if we can get policy directing TEA to support this, then they are the ones that kind of support CTE programs and special ed programs. And if they say, hey, this is a cool thing, we've seen this work at a pilot level, let's see if we can scale this up. That would be the mechanism to get it from the idea to the policy to actually happening in the classrooms. All of those moving parts are complicated, and I always like to say the state moves at glacial speed. Maybe before I retire, this is real gray hair, but this is kind of like an idea we'd really like to push up to that state level. Did I answer your question sufficiently, Khalil?
Yeah, I believe you did. I really like how you pieced it together and gave the audience three specific kind of spaces to look at and work the timeline. So I think you did. So thank you for that. And we'll definitely come back to you for some more information. Shannon, I want to move to you. Can you share some practical advice, being that you are on the ground with these educators, share some practical advice for them getting started or refining their approach to whether either assistive technology or, again, continuing to find that access for the students that they're working with?
Well, just like Patrick, Angela talked about that university level and that training. We also then need to train the CTE providers. They need that training and they need that understanding to pair up with those special ed departments. So they need to be able to say, hey, what is the equipment you need and how can my students work with your students to make it? But they don't know where that door is to get there. And then, as Angela said, you've got a speech pathologist. Like, we're doing a great job. We're starting to work with educators at that collegiate level. But then that speech pathologist or that occupational therapist or that vision specialist goes into their campus and they have a caseload that's really high. And so they don't have time to learn how to use a 3D printer or develop those CAD programming skills to create those objects. They know what they need. They know what the student needs. The student knows what the student needs, but they don't have that connection into that CTE program. And time is really difficult for them to find to create almost a new job skill. And for me, the CTE programs are already learning these skills. So I want to give you an example of Houston Independent School District. I went to Booker T. Washington and worked with Dr. Lee and his students. And so they took their own time to meet with me after school to teach them about assistive technology. And then that student worked with another student with a disability, but in doing so, they found out that student could not get the attention of the adults. So they created the students for under $30 a proximity switch, which allowed a student in a wheelchair to raise his hand when he was having a difficult time and needed help because he couldn't do that. And that's not something that would have been a priority for me as a speech pathologist, but by putting those students together, it really helped get something that made a difference for that student. But the unintended consequence then becomes the relationship that then developed between the CTE students and the special ed students. Mm-hmm. And one of the students said to me, and it was pretty powerful, he said, I had never met anyone with a disability before this. And now I want to go into rehab therapy. I want to make things for people because I felt so good about it. And I think about those students that even if he doesn't go into rehab therapy, wherever he goes, he's always going to have that understanding. So he's going to start creating things with that universal design in mind. If you're creating a vacuum cleaner that's going to vacuum somebody's floor, that robot now will help someone who's in a wheelchair do chores and allows them to have more independence. So I think that relationship is a piece that everyone has mentioned. Jay talked about that relationship, not having the turnover of the staff, and you're creating opportunities for these relationships, and both sides grow and become stronger because of that. So that's the part I see. And I think the other piece is when I worked in Booker T. Washington, one of the things that they lacked is they didn't have good equipment. So these kids are working with what they have to create this. But imagine what they could do if they had upgraded equipment, 3D printers that worked a little bit faster, because they have very old 3D printers that they're spending a lot of time repairing, which then takes away from, I mean, it's a good skill to learn how to repair it, but then it takes away from how fast they can get that equipment back. So you also have funding that needs to happen so that the equipment is changing on a regular basis, and we want to keep these kids using the up-to-date equipment. We want to make for a purpose, so we need to have these collaborations. Did I answer your question? I kind of went on a tangent.
Yeah. So the great thing about having such powerful leaders on the conversation is you kind of just can let them continue to go, because what they're saying is impactful. So no, both you and Angela are doing a great job. So thank you for that. I do want to stay with you, Shannon, a little bit, because the thing that we talked about when we first connected, my goal was with the TechFest Live Expo and the events that we are hosting. I noticed that after talking with you all, after attending the Abilities Expo, TechFest Live, that was not on our radar. Not that we didn't want to, but it just wasn't in our wheelhouse to provide opportunity for students, youth with disabilities. And so one of the important things for TechFest Live in this conversation and meeting these leaders was, how can we get better, right? How can we bring opportunities? How can we let ISDs, charter schools, private schools know that at our expos or at a STEM Go Pro Day or at the events that TechFest Live is hosting, we have opportunities, technology, information for those ISDs and individuals with disabilities. And so if Shannon, if you could just touch on that piece you were telling me about the 80% deficit, and maybe some of the ways that you may have touched on a little bit, but I just want people to know what that number is and how can we some of the ideas that you think we can collaboratively work together to solve that number.
I'm going to back up a little bit, and I'm going to describe assistive technology. So Angela and I work with assistive technology. Assistive technology is any tool that an individual uses to help bring that independence. So Judy Heumann was an advocate for individuals with disability. And one of the things that she said was, for everyone, technology makes things easier. But for an individual with disability, these tools make things possible. And it doesn't have to be high tech. It can be something like a pencil grip, because maybe I don't have a grip. I've got a disability where maybe I was born without two fingers. And so I have a hard time grasping the pencil. And so you can fabricate, and occupational therapists are phenomenal at doing this, something so that I can now hold that pencil independently. But we want to take it a step further, where that individual who needs the pencil grip is working with the fabricator so that you get the correct fit. So assistive technology are the tools. It can be anything from a communication, it can be something to be a manipulator for an individual with a vision impairment so that they can do their math. It can be a communication symbol with Braille on it. It can be a Braille map. These are all things that can be created by CTE programs. It can be the key guard. It can be something to help somebody grasp a spoon to eat. There's even a really cool robot. We've worked with a student who was able to get funded for a robot, and he can use a switch and he can feed himself. And you're like, well, this robot costs $3,000. But then you think of an aide sitting with him every day for the 200 days of school, whatever the school year days are, having to sit with him and feed him breakfast and lunch. And that time, over time, that computer will pay for itself because you've given that student independence. And now he doesn't have to have that aide standing over him, hovering and feeling like he doesn't have that independence. She can walk away once he's set up. He can feed himself. So it's little things like that that we just don't think about. And I think we just need to open the door to think about it as project-based learning. So if we start these students on that trajectory of, these are what assistive technology is, these are the tools, and these are your classroom, this is your school, and these are the students that need assistive technology. And we know that the World Health Organization says that at this point, 80% of the assistive technology needs are unmet. It could be a mount on a wheelchair so that somebody can drink their own drink. It could be the joystick that allows them to play games with their peers. And somebody says, well, why are we putting money into gaming? Well, what we know is if we can get a kiddo that's young started with video games, that then allows them to learn and build the muscle coordination for learning in academics and reading and turning the pages on books with those tools. And they need that practice with those motor skills. And so if we can get students to design that device that is just the right fit for the other student, then it's a game changer. And you look at Texas even, I go into some schools that are in rural areas and they have no AT. You might go into a larger district that has a little bit more funding and they've got more AT teams, and the numbers aren't that low. So it's a variation, but we want all students to have what they need to learn. And we want, one of the reasons these devices that are purchased from the stores often end up on the shelves is they don't fit, they're uncomfortable. And so if you think about each one of us, we've all set up our computers in a way that is meaningful to us. And our students with disabilities don't often have that opportunity. They're given something. Oh, well, maybe a trackball will help. Well, then the trackball's too big for this little hand because that's what the district had in their closet. Well, then what if we can get that CTE student to come in and adapt that so that it really works for that student? The other part with children is children are growing at just a rapid rate. And so what works for them today may not work for them after Christmas when they come back. I mean, I've got students that their wheelchairs no longer fit, so all of their mounts no longer work. Well, guess what? Then we've got to get that wheelchair rep in, and that takes time. So this child is sitting uncomfortable for a month before everything gets put together again. Well, think about that. If you were uncomfortable sitting for this period of time, you would check out because you're trying to make yourself comfortable, and your focus would not be on learning. Your focus would be on how can I just make my body not hurt. So it's that whole piece of it that it all has to kind of work together, and it goes all the way down to Jade. And think about even with her, she's got kids playing soccer, but they all have different needs. And so maybe someone needs a ball that lights up and has sounds because they're vision impaired. But maybe they're little and they need to start with a smaller ball. And these are all things our CTE programs can create. So you would start out by, there's already on Thingiverse, thousands of assistive tech products that can be 3D printed. So when your elementary and middle school kids are learning to 3D print, you can only print so many toys. Let's get them started with printing assistive technology tools that are free and open source. But then as they progress and we need to have more skills, then they can go into CAD programming and they can adapt a writing device so that it actually fits in the hand of the individual using it. And then they can prototype it so that when that child grows, we can just increase the size a little bit so that they don't have to change and learn something new. And then as you start getting into some of your higher level students, then you've got students like the ones at Booker T. Washington who created a proximity switch that just lit up so someone could raise their hand. So there's just so many areas that I don't even know. I haven't even explored them all. I just know the possibilities are unlimited. And if every CTE student just made one tool, look at how we would bridge that gap.
Yeah, you dropped some gems on us there, so thank you so much for that. Can we get the website that you said? What was the website that you mentioned?
So we created basically a resource bank, and it's through a Padlet. And so we've created research where, like in Europe, they had students follow blind students and work with blind students so they could create tactile maps and tactile tools for the students that were vision impaired. And this was a longitudinal study. It went over a couple years. And in every article that is shared, the unintended consequences are always the relationships between those two groups of students. And I think that is, in and of itself, if we can go into Jade's group and help one of our students create something that's going to help them participate in that sports, so you've increased their independence, but then you've also created a relationship for both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the Padlet is just a resource bank, and it is a plethora of what's out there just to get people started thinking about what's possible.
No, it's amazing. And we'll continue to put the QR codes up on the screen. Go ahead, Angela.
Just to clarify, so Tamales is our maker group that we have, kind of a statewide group of makers that we are connecting to be able to do maker activities for individuals with disabilities in their communities. So if you go to any community anywhere, even in rural areas, there is a maker group to be found. They are everywhere. So rather than everybody contacting TTAP and saying, can you make me this XYZ, we can say, hey, this is a maker thing you can do. Take it to your local maker group, and then they learn how to do it. The maker group learns how to do it. It's less expensive. There's no shipping, so on and so on. I just wanted to clarify, there's two things Shannon was talking about. One is the Tamales group, and one is the Padlet, or the resource we created that has the vetted files that support individuals with disabilities, the 3D printed files. And I'll post that in the chat shortly.
Yeah, perfect.
The 3D printing Padlet is actually linked under the 3D section of the Tamales website. Yes. So they're both together.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you both for that information. So Shannon, you were talking about how we can continue to get students to work together, how we can empower our CTE students and educators to think about using their skill sets and their time to create assistive technology to continue to help youth and young adults with disabilities. Patrick, I want to move over to you and talk about the connections between education and workforce skills with, kind of with what Shannon was talking about. And from your perspective at the Hello Maker Studio, how are you seeing that education to workforce pipeline work for your respective organization?
So, what's great about the space is that intentionally, it's not just for the College of Natural Sciences. It's accessible to everyone on campus, students, faculty, and staff, regardless of major or college that they're in. So what's been amazing is that as part of that class I mentioned, DIY Assistive Tech, it's mainly for first-year students. And a lot of them may have a major, but they're still just trying to feel things out and get a sense for their degree plan and for the campus. And by having both Hello Maker Studio and the course that's attached to it, it's been really great for discovery. I've had people even change majors in my class because they were made such a connection with making and being able to get involved in assistive technology and really start to, in a sense, skill up a little bit where they weren't, things like this wasn't necessarily on the radar coming into the university. So at Hello Maker, we have a lot of first-time people where they've never 3D printed or laser cut or held hand tools. So we have a large, variety of simple tools like drills and saws and hammers. A lot of our work starts with cardboard, and we do really fast, inexpensive prototypes, and so that students can get a sense of the materials and working with their hands and their minds at the same time. And what's interesting at the undergraduate level is that to get in, there's a lot of kind of step A to step B linear processes to get them here. And part of what I do is also kind of re-teaching them to learn how to learn and think about their thinking, about their learning. It's a lot of metacognitive work. And so that's been helpful and really a delight to see students embrace making mistakes and seeing failure as just another data point and to try something different next time. And so that's really, I think, the most valuable part of making is the technology is great, but it's also the mindset that they're that they're creating, and the skills and capacities that are being fostered as part of that process.
Yeah, no, amazing. Thank you so much. So I want to do a pulse check on the audience. How are y'all feeling? Are you enjoying the conversation that we're having so far today? I know I've learned. I've had a chance to talk with these individuals over the last 2.5 months, but I'm still learning stuff even on this LinkedIn Live. So if you are enjoying the conversation, if this is something that was meaningful and purposeful to you, let us know in the chat. Thank you for joining us as well. Jade, I want to come to you. To ask you about what educators should prioritize when designing inclusive experiences, and even a more pointed question at Sports Quest Soccer. What are some of the things that you all are doing that are that's a little more pointed, that you're prioritizing that experience for the youth and young adults that you're working with? I know you touched on the 9 month and that, but if you could go, if there's another example, if you dive a little bit deeper.
Yeah. So one of my favorite things, right? Like I said, I ran a nonprofit before, and one of my favorite things is doing my research before. So the Lord works in mysterious ways or purposeful ways where you don't know everything. So my favorite part is networking and connecting with people like the people on this live stream who know about certain things, and doing kind of like inventory about our demographics. And so, for example, something that I'm working on right now is meeting with a lot of ministries that work with special needs and seeing what they do. So on Sundays, I'll go to, for example, it's Champion Forest Baptist Church. And so they have one of the largest special needs ministry here in Houston. So I go, I observe, I ask questions. And again, the bigger the church, sometimes the more professionals that they have. And so I got to speak to a lot of the volunteers there. And they themselves have worked with special needs in particular niche. And so I get to pick their brains, and then I get to save their numbers, and meet with them and ask them what works with them, what doesn't work with them, right? Things like the cultural that they came from, the specific, right? For example, it's important, different from other athletic training, to know what backgrounds they come from, right? They might on the outward appearance look like they have certain disabilities, and you might think that that's it, but there's a lot of other things that they may be struggling with. And so making sure that I connect with the appropriate people. Right now, the other thing that we're doing is I'm also spearheading our HR department. So I'm meeting with a lot of safeguarding and what that looks like, right? Again, it's beyond just the typical athletic training that is going to make an athlete safe. And so how can they still experience, fun, but still in a safe manner? How can we recruit volunteers that are not, again, I told my boss, do we want to do inward reach, which is, hey, the volunteers that we get, we also want to minister to them. But I'm kind of pushing towards no. I want our focus to be mainly on our athletes. And so that means that we need to invest in vetting for our volunteers to be professionals, or at least to be very committed. And so I'm developing my own little system to where, I meet with them, I go through their credentials, I go through their, what is it called? References and things like that, and really get to the depth of if they're going to be a valuable volunteer, and then if they're willing to go in the long run, right? We don't want, I've mentioned it before, turnover. And so I'm doing a lot of research about the people that we're targeting, and then making sure that it's quality service. So one of Sports Quest core values, which I'm sure is very familiar with a lot of other, is excellence. And so sometimes that might be cutting off a lot of other things and making sure that the services we provide are excellent. And so that's one of the things that we're working towards. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
I appreciate the transparency, and similar to you, I'm on this conversation and wanted to bring this conversation to light to learn as well. As I stated before, TechFest Live, this wasn't a space that we were in. This wasn't a space that we were well versed in, and so I'm equally as excited, Jay, similar to you, to be on the call with Angela and Shannon and Patrick, to learn from them and their experience, and seeing how this works, and what are some of the shortcomings and the shortfalls, and how, as a collective, how we can continue this conversation and continue to make meaningful impact, not only in our respective cities, but in the state of Texas. What I would like to do now is I'd like to have our panelists just give a last minute remarks to the audience before we open it up to questions. Anything that didn't get a chance to ask you, or an opportunity that you wanted to plug for something that you all have coming up? We'll start with you, Angela, and then we'll just go down the line.
Yeah, so several of the panelists have kind of referenced the nothing about us without us type perspective, where when we build, support, intervene, you want to involve the end user and the person you're supporting. So I've been doing it a long time. I'm a professional. I have a huge knowledge base. That's great. I'm not the one who's actually going to be using this gadget in the environment to do the thing I want to do. So it doesn't really matter how clever I am or how many things I have in my toolbox. If I don't start with the person, it is not going to be successful. And I don't care if it's a 2-cent zipper pull that I'm printing on a 3D printer or a $6,000 communication device. That absolutely has to be the way you approach it, is involving that consumer, student, client, patient, whatever the right noun is. They have to be part of the team and part of the solution. We're just kind of the chorus, in my opinion.
No, thank you for that. And if we could put the resource real quick back up for TTAP for them to for those to scan with their information. Thank you. So y'all please go ahead and scan that QR code for some more resources from TTAP. And Shannon, I'll go ahead and bring it over to you.
I just think there's so much potential for real project-based learning when we start students off early, and then it just becomes what they do. And I think Patrick also, when he said it's learning to fail. So when these engineers come into these special ed classrooms and their first prototype doesn't work, these kids in special ed realize that they're both human. And so you open that door that it's okay to fail, but we're going to keep trying, and we're going to go back, and and that's that project-based learning mindset, which is how we want these kids to move forward into their careers later, into any kind of engineering field, any computer design, any CAD design, any whatever they're doing. They need to learn how to fail, but they need real projects. And this opens the door, not for me to say, well, just pretend this is happening. What are you going to do? No, you're going to actually, when we get to that level, you're going to actually go and participate in some real project-based learning. And you're going to see, when you get the input of that individual, that what you made, really, it's your idea, but you forgot to take into that idea. And you're going to get students that leave the high school more prepared for Patrick's program in the collegiate level. And I think it's just chipping away, working together with everybody on board, with that mindset that when we know better, we do better. And that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
There's so much potential, though. It's just the power of one. If every CTE student made one thing, look how many more quality things we'd have. And I want to point out one other program in Waco. There's a middle school, and their students actually went over and they took the ball and ran with it and interviewed the neighboring assisted living home, and interviewed the residents in the assisted living home, and went back and 3D printed the things that they knew how to 3D print for those individuals. And so that was a really huge relationship building opportunity also. So it doesn't just end in the schools. It's these maker groups can also head out into the community and build in that manner. So.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the information and for what you and Angela are doing at TTAP. Patrick, we'll go ahead and move next to you. Give us a few closing thoughts.
I think there are a couple of things that I'm hearing, and Shannon touched on this. Is I think a couple of ideas. One is just and they're related. The power of connections. I mean, thanks to Angela, and our first meeting was last year, and it was at a workshop, and she tracked me down, and we started emailing, and everything that's happened up to this point has just been kind of the effect of a bunch of individuals being interconnected and introduced to each other, and sharing resources and sharing ideas and experiences. And that's just such a powerful idea and tool, that I think that people could take away from this is, now we know more people and they know us, and we could help each other out. And I think that's also the power of the maker movement is you have a lot of people, and not just in school programs. There's community maker spaces. There's a growing amount of maker spaces in public libraries that do amazing work too. And so I think it's until what we talked about earlier about how do we make it this own movement around this idea, and how do we make change at the local and state level, as I think is this power in numbers.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Before we joined the live, Jade had brought up a point. She was asking, how did this kind of come about? And I shared with her, this is a 3-month-old conversation. So not too long. As I mentioned at the beginning of the segment, I met Angela at the Abilities Expo, which then turned into Shannon introducing me to Angela and the entire team. So Patrick is absolutely right. When it comes to connectivity, when it comes to networking and just collaboration, this is a prime example of how one conversation, one introduction, one reach out can turn into a meaningful conversation built around access for the youth and young adults that we serve. Jade, close us out with some a last thought. Anything you want to share about SportsQuest Soccer?
Yeah, so it'd be great if they could also pull up the little QR code. I think something that I'm very proud of is my director of operations. He's so good at the media. And so one of the first things that if you pull up that link, there's going to be tons of videos. So SportsQuest doesn't just go for special needs. So we target juvenile detention centers. We go to underserved youth in the evenings, and in the mornings is mine. So it's special needs. But we try to target different niches, different groups here in Houston. And so it'd be very cool if you guys could just, see what we're doing. We do newsletters on a quarterly basis. And again, right now I'm in a recruiting stage. So a lot of people that are seeing what we're doing. One of them was a referee for 10 years, and he worked with the Special Olympics. And I'm like, hey, if we can even steal you for 2 sessions, we'd love for your knowledge. We'd love for you to come and show us how do we teach sportsmanship to our special needs group, right? And so I think, if you're not on the ground all the time with special needs and with different ages, even just watching our videos and seeing what we're doing is really cool. Again, right now, one of my main targets is recruitment. So even if you're far away, we'd love if you have any ideas, any thoughts, like Shannon giving so many. One of my favorite things is practical solutions, right? Not for things to stay in the air as a vision, as an idea, but what are the next steps and how do we get there? I always say we live in a first world. There's always a way to get to where we need to get. Something about myself is I was able to work with special needs in the Middle East and learn about how they treat them over there and how they are looked upon. And we brought our staff to be able to teach parents on how to support them. And so I know that it will not just stay in Houston. It will grow. I love doing missions. Going to Mexico, Durango, Mexico, and just being able to use what I'm learning and take it over there, right? Of course, whatever they appreciate, whatever they would love to pick up on. But yeah, I would love even just for y'all to visit, to connect with me, even any thoughts. I'm always open to growing. So yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, amazing. And we definitely will. We want to stay connected. One of the reasons why we had this conversation is, so you all can know the leaders in your state, know who's working on this and who also is an ally, right? Sometimes when we're in the work and we're doing it, our head is down and we sometimes may not feel like there's others around us who are doing similar work, or we may not be able to find them as easily. And so definitely this conversation is for that. If you're out there, if you're an educator, if you're a CTE coordinator, if you just have a passion for youth, this conversation was for you. From a resource standpoint, from a connection, from a networking standpoint. So I hope that, again, this conversation was impactful for you. Don't go anywhere yet. I do want to jump to the chat and ask a few of y'all's questions. So as I am scrolling through the chat, give me a second. But if you do have some questions, please go ahead and put those answers put those questions in the chat. Shannon, I do see your hand waving. So if you want to go ahead and if you see something you want to tackle, go ahead and get started.
I think we also need to remember this is working together. So it's not just the CTE because a lot of them are in schools right now. But if you have a company and you're looking for something to start, reach out to your school and let them know you'll help them. So there's something that you can do. Because Khalil, the reason I met you was I was working with Brian from ImageNet, and that's where I met Adrian Leal. And he was the one who came up and said, we had all of these things 3D printed, like a water bottle opener. And a lot of the people were like, I could even use this tool. This is all assistive tech that we've printed with 3D printers. And he and his wife sat and talked with me for a long time, and it was really phenomenal. And he was the one who said, you have to meet Khalil because this is right up his alley. So those connectors are really important at this point. We need to get people connected who are interested, who want to see this move forward. And that's where I think you become that hub so people can reach out to you and say, hey, how do I get involved? And we need to start bringing them together so that we can help the schools around them. So if you're in a school in Huntsville, Texas, or if you're in a business in Huntsville, let's reach out to that school because these rural schools need even more help than some of the big city schools.
Yeah. A wealth of information. Did you have something else, Shannon? Sorry.
No, that's it. It's just that working together, 6 degrees of separation. We got to come together and just spread the word.
Yep. Yeah. No.
Get them started.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Again, this conversation is super important, and so glad to have been connected with you through Adrian, who's actually a board member of TechFest Live. So again, the power of connection is important. I am looking through the chat for some questions. If you do have some questions, please be sure to type them in the chat. So we have one from Ted Irving. Would love some panel thoughts on deeper dives into federal Perkins funding and how principals need training on proper expenditures, specifically in the area of maintenance contracts, to ensure hardware is available to meet class sizes and to function, operate on a continual basis.
I'll take this one. So this kind of goes back to what I was referring to before about a bit of a disconnect with the state policy and TEA support and special education and assistive technology. So currently right now at TEA, there is not personnel that has a knowledge base of assistive technology. So it's not that they don't understand federal law says school districts will provide this if it enables a student to receive FAPE. It's that it's just not on their radar because there's not anybody in the office going, hey, what about the kids with visual impairments that are braillers? There's nobody ringing that bell. So I think as practitioners, that puts the impetus on us, then we have to carry that policy weight. So we have to go to our state representatives, I guess federal too, if you consider that's actually a federally funded program, and say, hey, remember this is important. And if these students are literate, they're able to go to college, they're able to get jobs. There's in this country, it's a kind of a big deal not to be a burden on society, although I have thoughts about that too. But anyway, so it goes back to having the policy that supports the education that'll support the funding. And at any given campus, that administrative leadership is who is the gatekeeper for a lot of that support. And so if you can loop in your special education administration in a school district and your local administrator at that campus, to get that, oh, this is important and this is why, here's the big picture. It's not just that there's a gadget that a kid needs. That's not what it's about. It's about providing the supports so that students are successful. And this is one way we need to do that. And sometimes you just need to bring use cases and say, look, this is a student who's not able to Braille. This is a student who is able to Braille, and all the options that are available. Ted, did that answer your question? That's a little bit.
And can I comment on Ted's
question
also? Because
For sure.
I have one more comment on Ted's. So one of the things we saw when the first maker movement started coming out, really like 2015, 16, 17, I saw a lot of occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech pathologists who wanted to jump on the bandwagon, but they didn't have the background knowledge. And so we bought a lot of the wrong equipment. So there's an importance to train the CTE teachers and the special ed that if you're teams, that if you are buying this equipment, you need to make sure that the bed on your 3D printer is big enough. You need to make sure you've got the tools. You need to make sure that you know what materials you're going to, and that's why it's really important to work with that CTE program, because ImageNet, Brian actually went out and helped 6 different teachers that they bought 3D printers that they didn't even know how to put together, because they're jumping on that bandwagon. So you do need to have a plan. We need to know, where is this equipment going to be stored? And it does need maintenance. You do need to have those maintenance plans, and we need our programs, which is why it becomes so imperative, not just special ed teams jumping on the bandwagon, but really working with your CTE program, because they do a lot more training in that area. You need the software to slice in between designing it into so it all needs a place to be housed. You need equipment to clean it. And so you can't just buy a 3D printer, or a business can't just donate a 3D printer. We've got to know how we're going to sustain it. We need to be able to train the people on how to do it. We need to know we're going to have upkeep. We're going to have to replace the filament. And all of that has to be in the plan when we're getting these grants. And we need to have a long-term plan, not just, I'm excited, we're going to do this tomorrow. So I always say we need a plan. We've been working on some planning documents that I'm willing to share if anybody wants to reach out. We need to make sure that we have that 1-year plan. Where are we going to store it? How much noise is it going to make, etc. Where's our space going to be? Is it going to have the ventilation, which Patrick has an excellent maker space? And then who's going to use it? Kids rotate. So you've got to have that plan for training, not only the teachers and the staff, but if that staff leaves tomorrow, you don't want to lose your whole program. So you need to make sure that you're building for the long haul and not just for tomorrow.
Yeah. Always great information, Shannon. Angela, go ahead. Or was that Patrick or Angela?
Yeah, it was me. If anybody I've opened up about 6 maker spaces, both for community and in schools. So if anybody is interested and wants to inquire about like potential tools or setups, how to get it organized, I'm happy to provide any input.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Patrick. So we do have the Hello Maker Studio in Austin. I'm not sure if anyone has any maker studios or maker spaces that they know of in Dallas. I do know one great one here in Houston, TXRX Labs, with Michael Gutierrez and Joe doing great work, and their entire staff doing a lot of great work. So for those in the chat, those joining this call, if you're not familiar with TXRX Labs, I would definitely go over and check them out. They are in the East End, and again, they're doing a lot of great work. So when you're looking for those 3D printed resources or just resources in general, definitely check out TXRX Labs. I'm still going through the chat for any questions. Let's see if we still have some time. We are ending at 12:30. So if you have some questions, please put them in the chat, and I'd love for our panelists and myself to give those questions a go.
And I did have the opportunity to meet with Joe at TXRX, and the space is phenomenal. It is a maker space on steroids, and you can make anything there. They've got a metal shop, and he's really invested. He was really open. We had some really nice conversations. So he started the conversation in regards to what they can do to help. But I see them as a great training resource for schools, because they know all the equipment, and you need to know that equipment before you start just randomly making tools.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, definitely TXRX Labs are doing some great work here in Houston. I am still going through the chat if there are any questions. But this is the time of the conversation where if you left something out, if you remembered you wanted to say something, you didn't get a chance to say something, we're kind of in free format right now. So as these questions are coming in, panelists, please feel free to chime in. But I think this was a very great first, we'll call it a pilot conversation. And I hope that you all, from the audience standpoint, I hope you gained some insightful knowledge. I hope this was meaningful for your time. I hope that this mattered to you as well. I see a LinkedIn user saying that their question is in the chat. There's quite a few messages, so I am trying to scroll through and find your question, but we will definitely get to it. Angela just put some maker spaces in the Dallas area, so if you are in the Dallas area, there are some maker spaces there. While we're getting that question up, I will just scroll back through. But again, yeah, this was something I really wanted to do, not just again for Tech Fest Live, but for all of those out there. How can we collaborate? How can we find new resources and opportunities? And I think we're doing that. So I just want to say thank you to my panelists just first for being a part of this, for hearing kind of my concerns and my thoughts of where Tech Fest Live sits in this intersection of education, workforce development, and economic growth, and how can we continue to be a part of the solution. We have a question from Dr. Q, or she's sending greetings from Houston by way of Los Angeles, and would love to explore how education firms like hers, Menti Educational Services, can continue to work not only with Tech Fest Live, but with the organizations that we have on here. So Dr. Q, you are doing amazing work. So thank you for that. I will definitely make sure that we are connected. I know we have some things that we're working on, but we definitely would love for you to connect with Angela, Shannon, Patrick, and Jade as well. And so maybe what we can do while more questions are coming in, if you all want to put your LinkedIn in the chat, my panelists, put your LinkedIns in the chat so that our audience can connect with you on LinkedIn and reach out further. And then also, while we're waiting on questions, we can go ahead and put everyone's QR code back up just in case you joined later, didn't get a chance to scan.
So also in answering Dr. Q's question, we do training and professional development as part of our obligations with our grant. So perhaps some collaborations there might be appropriate, or we could connect you with other places that public schools seek education of assistive technology types. And we also have a conference that anybody is welcome to participate in, where you can connect with all of our constituents. This year will be October 28th and 29th here in fabulous Austin. So those are some places you can get
Angela,
a little closer.
What's the name of that conference?
It is called Viva La Vida with AT, and we serve tacos for breakfast because you will notice a continual theme of Mexican food in everything we do.
Gotta love Tex-Mex, right?
Yeah,
So-
Tamales is Texas Assistive Technology Makers Alliance, and that is what the tamales represents.
Great acronym. So October 28th and 29th in Austin, there is would you call it is it STEM conference? I want to make sure I'm giving the people the right
This is an
information.
assistive technology. Ours is an assistive technology conference. It's broad.
Okay. Perfect.
We offer continuing education for 10 different areas. So educators, occupational therapists, recreational therapists, speech pathologists, social workers. And if it's not on there, email me. I'm in charge of continuing education because we want people to grow together and we want you to get credit for what you're doing.
Amazing. We do have a question from Kim Adams. Has anyone considered tech that works with elders as their cognitive abilities are declining?
Big one.
It's a whole nother thing we do. Go to our website.
So what I'm hearing is, Kim, there is another LinkedIn live session that we would have to answer and go more in depth with all of these questions. So stay tuned as we work to maybe get another one of those sessions going. But
well, when we meet for the tamales, it's not just for schools, it's also for maker groups. And so we have a mix. And the idea is like, I live here in Montgomery County, Texas. And so there's a maker barn. And so my goal is to start working with some of those individuals to start volunteering some of the tools for veterans. And there's a big need for veterans or just the aging population in general, building a ramp, that's fabrication. And so I think once the schools get really good, they can reach out and be even more dynamic and go to some of the local churches to see if there's a need. So, I mean, there's so many opportunities. There's so much potential.
Yeah, for sure. And again, as Kim is stating, she is so there's a growing disabled community who are often overlooked, which I'm sure you all know of. And not only are they new to tech, but what little they've experienced is now disappearing from their cognitive cortex. So Kim, I would definitely encourage you to check out the things that the Texas Technology Access Program have going. Again, would love for you all to connect with them on LinkedIn as well, and reach out and ask any questions that you have for them. Let's see. Anyone else?
Students can even set up things like geofencing so that we don't lose adults with dementia, and so it sets alarms off for their caregivers. So there's a lot of tech out there, not just 3D printing and fabrication, but there's a lot of tech out there that there's potential to help everyone, and it's just getting the word out.
Yeah, Shannon, you are coming with a wealth of knowledge. We surely appreciate your inputs and insights to these questions and the um, things that our audience is saying. So thank you everyone for asking questions. Our panelists for answering questions. We've got about 10 minutes left. Again, if you have any questions, our panelists are here till 12:30 to answer your questions. And if not, you know they're more than happy to connect with you offline at some point in time. But again, we thought this was an important conversation to have, to bring together leaders within Texas, to talk about advancing access in Texas for our youth and young adults. So I just want to thank Angela. I want to thank Shannon. I want to thank Patrick and Jade for their time, their efforts in joining TechFest Live for this impactful conversation. One of my goals is to continue this conversation and really go from theory to application, which you all are doing on a daily basis. So I'm looking forward to continuing that work with you all, and seeing how at some of our events coming up, like STEM Go Pro Day and the 6th Annual TechFest Expo, how can we make sure that we have the access and the opportunity for the middle school and high school students that we serve. So would love to to connect with everyone in the chat, those that I haven't talked to in a while, those that I do know, and again want you all to connect with our leaders here on our panel. I don't see any other questions, but we are here till 12:30 if you have them. Panelists, any other last thoughts? We only got 10 minutes left. I know we said a lot. You all are.
Yeah, I have one
Kim.
question as well.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Whenever you're done, I'll go ahead.
Okay.
For Kim, we
Yeah.
have a whole set of technology that are used for the aging population. So please reach out because we can have that conversation. Even for simplifying, like your personalized cell phones, they've put technology into them so they can be simplified. So the Apple has assistive access. So you can actually put like who the contacts can be so that they're not getting someone calling from overseas saying they need to send them $1,000. You can block some of those. So there's a lot of technology out there that can protect the aging population.
Yeah, thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Jade.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to pick the brains of our panelists, see if you guys had any thoughts. But one of the things that I'm kind of DIYing, but I'm not sure if there's something out there, is to kind of create a statistical way to show how our program is working well, something that is quantitative and not just, general, yeah, we're successful, or hey, not just anecdotal. And so I hate to bother our parents or nurses or groups that we're partnering with and get too much into the numbers. So I'm trying to find a way to show, right, in order for us to grow and to connect with schools and to connect with other programs with what we do, is kind of showing results. And so even though on the ground I see there's results, I'm not sure if there's any software or any practice that's commonly known to kind of show statistically that things are working well, a measure, some type of measure.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, sometimes that's hard when you work with individuals that are seeking support or mediation, because your control is to not provide a service, and that's usually not ethical. However, what I have done in the past, instead I've said, what is my end user's goal and objective? I want to be able to participate in class. I want to be able to write an essay. I want to be able to play video games. And then we do the intervention or the practice or whatever. And then was that goal met? And so that's a statistic you could potentially track. Was the student able to then engage in a soccer game or whatever your objective was from that student's perspective?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, and just for collecting information, like one of the things that is tricky about the makerspace, Hello Maker Studio, is it's not funded by tuition, so we are constantly out to fundraise and look for donors. And so we've been working with the platform Qualtrics, which is great just for collecting data. So I think it depends on what and how you collect it, but it is possible then to take that data and then represent it in different ways. And that can be super helpful just to communicate maybe to your audience.
Yeah.
Some of your impact you're having.
Yeah, no,
Great.
that's very helpful. If I could just say one last thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, so we also, the month of December is when we did all our funding, and well, not all of it, but it's a major month for funding for our donors. And one of the things that I'm trying to convince, right, is my boss is our program is a little bit more particular when it comes to, and you guys have all mentioned it, to equipment. And so, for example, I just did a Special Olympics kickoff party. And so there's a lot of things that normally for a regular orientation meeting I wouldn't do, but because I want families to come with their athlete with a special need and their sibling, and we want to create a space that is for every family member. That means I have to find an activity or some type of fidget, that way they won't have to walk outside or anything like that, so it could be welcoming. And so my budget and my realistically, I'm like, if this is a pilot, this is the below, but I'm trying to show hey, this is realistically, there is equipment you're going to have to need to meet the needs. And so but being able to show, hey, it was a pilot, but it worked, it was successful. Out of about 30 families that registered, only 4 didn't show up, so the rest of the families did. And so that's great to just show the attendance, which was the goal, is to love on these families, and then get them to actually, hey, out of those 25, how many actually participated for the whole 8-week training, right? How many of them actually competed? How many came back next week, right? To show that relationships were built and all those things. But there's so many stats that can be shown to show that something is being successful, and then also know what's not working. So that's my goal.
Great question, Jade and Patrick. I appreciate you for what's the name of the
Qualtrics?
Qualtrics. Mm-hmm.
Qualtrics. Yeah, thank you so much for that. I did see something in the chat. Miss Kimberly Hatter says that there's another group, the Workforce Solutions Gulf Coast, has a call for mentors and facilitators. So if you were a part of this conversation and want to check out more information about them, there is a link in this in the chat. I think what Workforce Solutions is doing, what we all are doing from a youth and young adults perspective, goes back to Shannon's point. It's about collaboration. It's about connection. It's about conversation. And that's what I think what we were able to accomplish here today. I do not see
Can I say one more thing about Jade's comment?
Yeah, you definitely can.
You open the door. I think that those siblings are often the forgotten members, and it's so important that Jade is including those siblings. And I could even see, if that program grew while we're working with the siblings out on the soccer field, let's give these other siblings that don't have disabilities some skill sets, so that, because I worked as a speech pathologist and I did private practice, and the siblings are the ones that have to sit there in the office for an hour waiting while the parents are having to put extra attention. And it's not a bad thing. It helps them learn that compassion, but let's teach them a skill set while they're waiting, so that that whole family's included. So there's so much potential there to make that a family event. And I love that, Jade. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for the encouragement. I'm trying to get my people on the same page with me, because you got to work things differently, right? It's not the same. So,
they have to understand how it comes together.
Yes, exactly.
Angela, I am trying to figure out if Miss Shannon has a clone that you wouldn't mind me using, because
no, and you may hire her away.
Well, we're going to go ahead and close for today's conversation on advancing access in Texas, a joint info session with TechFest Live, Texas Technology Access Program, the Hello Maker Studio, and Sports Quest Soccer. We really appreciate you all for joining us for today's conversation. Again, we hope it was impactful, inspiring, and important for you in your everyday journey. If you're working with youth and young adults, or if this is just something you are very passionate about. Thank you all to our panelists for your time, your efforts, and again, the knowledge and the wisdom that you've instilled in not only the rest of the panelists, but also our audience. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It was fun. Bye.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I tried to sit still.
I think we are going to stay on.